morning, y'all. Welcome to your senior year of high school. You are all here to... Hey, what's going on? Are you okay? No, I just don't feel like I'm supposed to be here. What do you mean? Is this the wrong classroom? No, it's just... I feel like an imposter. An imposter? Like you're tricking us? No. I shouldn't be in this class. Why shouldn't you be in this class? Because I don't know the content. I don't know about Shakespeare or Dante. I don't know what Hamlet is. I've read other stuff, but I've never read this. Right, I know that. You know that? Yeah, that's the point. It's the whole point of school. You're here because you've read some novels and poetry in other classes. The fact that you made it to this course means you have sufficiently proven that you know about literature and poetry in order to pass the previous class. You earned at least a 2.0 GPA. That means you deserve to be here. Sure, but I'm telling you, I don't know enough to pass this class. Yeah, that's fine. You're here to get better at it. And by the time we get to April or May, you'll have learned enough in order to pass the class. Of course you can't pass it yet. You're still learning. So this scenario is admittedly terrible and probably poorly edited, but that's not my fault. I'm still learning. I'm here to talk to you about imposter syndrome and specifically how rearranging the way we think about what we do at work can help us take imposter syndrome and change it into an opportunity to learn. I'm PJ Metz. I'm an education evangelist at GitLab. I work closely with a lot of people who work in education. I'm a former English teacher. I started in tech in May of 2021. Let's talk about imposter syndrome. Now, first, I want to talk about this comic because this is how it feels a lot of times. You feel like an imposter and your anxiety goes, listen, we're going to be good buddies. So we've got Dwight and Jim from The Office. Dwight saying, do you want to form an alliance with me? And he's your imposter syndrome. Jim replying as anxiety, absolutely I do. And this is the overwhelming feeling that we tend to get when we think about imposter syndrome. There's this idea that we're a fake, and it makes us anxious and it makes us worried, and all that worry leads to more anxiety, and then suddenly you're so anxious that it's hard to do your job correctly. And this is totally normal. Lots of people experience this. So first off, what is imposter syndrome? So imposter syndrome, like I said, disproportionately affects high-performing people. And it's a doubting of one's own abilities and a belief that people around you will soon realize that you're incapable of doing your job well. You look at people at work and you think they're going to say like, what do they even do all day? Are they even good at their job? And you worry that they're going to start to see through what you do and they're going to see the real you and they're not going to like the real you. And you're going to worry that you're going to lose your job because you're a fake. I'm here to tell you that that's honestly usually not true. In fact, if you're an imposter, you'd be actively working to undermine the people around you. Oftentimes, imposter syndrome is presented as an issue that only affects women or other underrepresented groups when a lot of the data suggests otherwise. This disparity between the data and the way it is talked about socially leads to a problematic belief that women suffer from an inability to believe in themselves, when those issues more likely stem from gender imbalances in the workplace, as opposed to women are more likely to have imposter syndrome, which, again, is not true. Men are just as likely to suffer as women. Now, most importantly, imposter syndrome is related to the Dunning-Kruger effect. And the Dunning-Kruger effect is where the more well-versed you are in a subject, the more likely you are to downplay your knowledge or believe that you're not as good as other peers within that subject. Dunning-Kruger is often used to explain why intelligent people doubt themselves so much, and there are so many others that seem so sure that what they're saying is right, but they're often incorrect. So what I'm saying is, if you believe that you're an imposter and that you're tricking people into thinking you're good when you're actually not, more than likely what you're experiencing is the Dunning-Kruger effect, a belief that you're not as good as the people around you because you recognize that the people around you are really good. You're really good too. Now, something really important about all this is that we learn about imposter syndrome mostly at work. And I want to make a point to all of you. When you're a student, as we saw in that example at the beginning, you don't usually feel like an imposter. That whole scenario doesn't really make sense. Yet for some reason at work, we have this tendency to feel like we're faking it. When you're in school and you walk into calculus, you don't think, man, I really I can't do this. I mean, maybe you do because it's calculus, but you don't feel like a fake. You know you're there to learn. At the beginning of the year, you know you don't know calculus. But by the end of the year, you've taken enough tests and you've earned some grades that tells you exactly where you stand with calculus. If you're me, you stand very far away from calculus. And a lot of you are immediately going to say, yeah, but work isn't school. There are different expectations for work. And you're absolutely right. However, when you first get to work, there's a lot of things that are different about that place compared to where you were before. Oftentimes, it's something completely new. If it's your first job, then it's definitely new. If it's your 5th job, it's still a new system, a new way of doing things. And so we are, in fact, learners in that moment. If you've been at a job for a long time, you're still learning new things. A couple of other ways that school and work are alike is that there's group projects, whether you like them or not, and there's always some kind of drama. But really, the big difference is that for some reason, we don't inherently understand that work, our job, is still about learning. Even though the first thing you do is get onboarded, which is literally learning about the company. That learning needs to be the way you interpret the rest of the job. That's what's important here. You understand that a job, even though it is about delivering something, it is also about learning something while you do it. And in learning, you get better. Confused? Good. After all, confusion is the sweat of learning. You have to embrace confusion and a learning mindset, because if you tell people I'm learning and I'm getting better, then you don't have a chance to say to yourself, I'm lying to all these people. You do know something. There's a lot you don't know, and that's fine. But if you say that out loud and you make sure your team and you, most of all, know that you expect to be learning new things here, then you're not an imposter, because an imposter would never admit that. So one of the biggest issues with imposter syndrome seems to be confidence, a lack of confidence in oneself, or a belief that you have not earned the confidence that other people have in you, and so you think that you're tricking them. So let's talk about con men and con women for a second here. A con man or con woman is someone who purposefully creates a sense of unearned confidence from others. They manipulate, they lie, they coerce, they trick people into doing things that are not in the victim's best interests. And to earn that confidence takes hours, weeks, months of work and intent to craft a perfect scenario in which people will trust you. You're not a con man or con woman. You're not an imposter. Somehow it's easier to say that you are an accidental mastermind manipulator instead of believing that you deserve what you've worked for. If you can position yourself as a person who's learning and getting better, as opposed to someone who already knows something, then you're not fooling anyone. In fact, you're admitting something that an imposter would never admit. You can remove imposter syndrome with honesty and transparency. Another thing that imposter syndrome has its roots in are comparisons. You saw someone else do something and it just seemed effortless. And you think, I can't do that. Should I be here? You see your teammate doing amazing work, seemingly having 30 hours in a day, and you struggle with certain tasks and you start to compare those two things. What you're doing is you're comparing the highlight reel, only the successes of someone else, to your blooper reel. The hard part about confidence is we have full access to all the times we've made a mistake, all the times that we didn't live up to our expectation of ourselves. And when we have access to that, that tends to be what we compare to other people. When you're thinking, should I be here when compared to other people that you work with, the answer is yes. Yes, you should be there. You are part of a team. You are not the only person working at that job. And if you're new to the career, like many of you are, the expectation is that you're learning. According to Justin Pott's article, Actual Imposters Don't Get Imposter Syndrome, people with imposter syndrome tend to be highly skilled and qualified, and highly qualified people tend to work around other highly qualified people, and they tend to measure their own self-worth in comparison, and that's a recipe for self-doubt. Again, that's the Dunning-Kruger effect. Everyone around me is an expert, and you start to doubt yourself. You need to embrace yourself as a learner, and you need to know that you'll never be done learning at your job. It's possible that you're an expert in your field, but you will always find things to learn. We don't have all the answers. That's why Google exists. According to a Stack Overflow developer survey from 2020, when asked what steps to take when stuck on a coding problem, 90% of respondents indicated they visit Stack Overflow. 90% when stuck, Google the answer. You know what a liar would say when they get stuck? They would pretend they weren't. An imposter would say, I've got this. I don't need any help. I don't need to check it. You need to check the answer. That's fine. An imposter would never admit it. You are a learner because you're being honest about what you do and don't know. Honesty keeps you from being an imposter. You need to understand that you're probably a bad liar. We all lie in a variety of ways, but we're often not doing it for big things. People will stretch the truth instead of outright lie, but an imposter sets out to intentionally deceive everyone around them. Unless you are actively lying on your resume, as opposed to sort of writing it so it's seen in a best possible light, then you were hired because they believe in you. If you've been at the company for a few years, they probably would have found you out by now unless you were taking extreme steps to conceal the lack of quality work that you're producing. The truth is, many of us are performing just fine at our jobs. In fact, many of us are excelling at our jobs and our work, but we don't believe that because we get nervous and anxious about whether we deserve it or not. Now, what happens when you do fail? When something you are working on does go horribly wrong? Good! I'll tell you what imposters don't do. They don't fail. If an imposter fails, it breaks down the illusion that they're creating for people around them. Failure is a part of learning, not lying. Failure is an opportunity to know what to do better next time. One day, somehow, somewhere, you're gonna mess up at your job. Like, you need to know that that's going to happen at some point. You're going to mess up on some project. You're going to underdeliver on something. You might even take down production. But if there's anything I know about developers, everyone takes down production at some point. A couple more things you can do that can help you stop imposter syndrome. The first thing is listen to praise without dismissal. This is a hard one. We find ourselves praised by people and our instinct is to say, oh, no, that's not me. Or no, I did it with my team. And being humble is great and it's fine. But when someone praises you or gives you a compliment about your work, listen to it. Say, thank you. I really appreciate you saying that. And if you want to make sure you include somebody else in your praise, do it. You know, it was a team effort. We all worked really hard together. And I would really appreciate you saying something. Take the compliment, take the praise, and understand that that person didn't have to say anything to you. But they did, because you're doing a great job. Another thing to do is to invest in yourself. Keep a brag document around. When someone compliments you, write it down. Sometimes it's nice to go back to those and remember the nice things people said about you. When you're feeling especially sad about the way something went, or about a failure, or about a time you didn't live up to your own expectations, you can go back to that document and you can remember some times where you did excel and that someone else felt compelled to say something to you about it. Additionally, it becomes a great document to have around when it comes time to start talking about promotions. You can bring up all the times that people had something good to say about your productivity or your work performance. If you're open about your imposter syndrome, what you'll find are other people who are having the same hard time. When you find other people that are having the same hard time, you can build a community, and that community can lift each other up and support each other in times when members aren't feeling 100%. So if you're open and honest about the way you feel with other people, what you'll find often is support and understanding and empathy. You just have to open yourself up to that first. Thank you so much for coming. If you have any questions, please, you can email me at metz.pj@gmail.com. You can go to metsandaround.com where you can find a bunch of my other social media links and all the things that I've worked on. If you have any questions about imposter syndrome, about my move from education into tech, about what I do as an education evangelist, about where I got such an amazing hat, you can leave a comment on my CodeLand post at the Code Newbie community. You can follow me on Twitter at metsandaround. Please contact me. I'd love to hear from you. Tell me a time you felt like an imposter. because I feel like an imposter all the time. And I'd love to find a community that wants to help lift each other up and find our way through this together. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for your time and your interest. And I hope to hear from a lot of you. Please enjoy the rest of CodeLand 2021, and I'll see you later. That was terrible.